I took in my boyfriend when he had nowhere to go. Now he's accusing me of throwing him on the streets after months of me financially and emotionally supporting him while he gave me silence, blames, ultimatums, even asked for apologies. I'm 27 years old, and I've been dating my boyfriend, who's also 27 for about 7 months now. It's been a whirlwind in a way I didn't expect. Not because of grand romantic gestures or anything like that, but because of the complex emotional landscape we've had to navigate, and honestly, the weight I've been quietly carrying. When we first met, I wasn't looking for a relationship. At all. I'm currently in the middle of a long, drawn-out divorce that's been going on for about a year and a half. It hasn't been easy, not even close. The marriage ended because of domestic violence, and there was a lot of psychological and emotional abuse involved. It was the kind of trauma that takes time to even name, let alone process. I was just beginning to rediscover myself when he came into my life. I didn't think I was ready for anything serious. In fact, I was trying really hard not to be. But he seemed kind and thoughtful, and things just kind of unfolded naturally. In the beginning, it was light and fun. We kept things simple, casual dates, movie nights at my place, the occasional weekend trip that felt like a little escape from the noise of our everyday lives. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe around someone. He knew about my past. I was upfront from day one about the divorce and the trauma that came with it. I didn't want to hide or sugarcoat it. I needed him to know what he was stepping into. He didn't judge me. He listened. He was present. And that made me feel safe. Things changed about 2 months into the relationship. He told me his family was being evicted. It was a chaotic situation, sudden, scary, and for him, pretty destabilizing. He didn't know where to go. He asked me if he could move in with me. I paused. I live in a co-living space. It's a house with roommates. Not exactly a romantic or spacious setup, and definitely not ideal for adding another person into the mix. I also have a small dog, and space was already tight. But I felt for him. I knew what it felt like to not have a place to go, to feel like the rug was being pulled out from under you. He promised it would be temporary just until he got things figured out. So, I said yes. I let the property management know and officially added him to the lease, which increased my rent by $250 a month. That alone was a strain, but it didn't stop there. I quickly became the primary and, honestly, the only person covering most of our expenses. Groceries, utilities, gas, dog food, my dog's vet care, even adding him to my car insurance so he could get around more easily. Everything fell on me. At first, he did contribute a bit, some money for rent, some cash toward bills, but that only lasted the first couple of months. He was unemployed when he moved in and told me he was job hunting. And I believed him. I still do. He picks up the occasional odd job here and there, sometimes $30 or $40, maybe $100 if he's lucky that week. But it's inconsistent, and it doesn't come close to covering half of our shared expenses. I, on the other hand, have a stable full-time job. I'm not rich by any means, but I've learned how to budget carefully, especially after everything I went through during my marriage. I've always been good at managing on my own. But now, I'm not just managing for myself anymore. I'm supporting both of us. And the longer this goes on, the heavier it feels. Things were okay for a few weeks after he moved in. We were figuring out how to share a space, learning each other's rhythms and habits. I was doing my best to create a sense of stability for both of us, and even though I was carrying most of the weight, I was still hopeful. I thought once he got back on his feet, things would feel more balanced. Then we adopted another dog. At first, it felt like a sweet idea. I love animals. They ground me, comfort me. And I think I hoped that caring for something together would help bring us closer. But almost immediately after bringing the new dog home, I started to feel overwhelmed. I didn't realize at the time how much that one decision would change the dynamic of everything. Suddenly, I wasn't just responsible for myself and for him, I was responsible for 4 living beings. Me, my boyfriend, and now 2 dogs who both needed food, walks, vet appointments, attention, and care. It hit me hard, and the weight of it settled in fast. To make matters worse, he started complaining. About the dogs. About having to walk them. About having to clean up after them. About how the dogs were too much responsibility, and how I wasn't giving him enough attention. That part stung. Because I've been stretching myself to the absolute limit. I work 10-hour days. I go to the gym to keep my sanity. I'm enrolled in a study program to advance my career. I attend therapy twice a week to work through the trauma of my past, the violence, the manipulation, the pieces of myself I'm still trying to put back together. And on top of all that, I was trying to keep the house in order and give my dogs the love and attention they deserve. When he told me he felt neglected, I didn't shut him down. I listened. I tried to understand. I told him I heard him and that I didn't want him to feel like he was just another obligation on a never-ending to-do list. But I also gently pointed out that he wasn't working, and since he had more free time, maybe he could take over more of the housework and dog responsibilities. I thought that would help. I figured that if he handled the domestic things, I wouldn't be so burnt out all the time and then we could actually enjoy our time together. It didn't feel like a wild or unfair suggestion. But things didn't get better. They got heavier. I started to feel like I was constantly walking on eggshells, not wanting to upset him or make him feel less than. I could tell he was struggling. I don't think he expected to be unemployed this long, and I think he resented the fact that I was the one supporting us. I understand how hard it can be on someone's pride, but the thing is, I never threw it in his face. Not once. I never made him feel like he owed me, or that he wasn't enough. In fact, I went out of my way to make it not feel like that. I even opened a joint bank account for us, just so he wouldn't feel like he was taking from me. I started transferring just enough money into that account to cover our shared bills, groceries, and a bit of spending money, enough that he could buy something small without feeling like he had to ask me. I thought maybe that would give him a sense of autonomy. Maybe it would help him feel like we were building something together, instead of him being dependent on me. I told him, again and again, that I appreciated everything he contributed, whether it was walking the dogs, cleaning, or just emotional support. I never pressured him to contribute financially. I tried so hard to keep the energy one of partnership, not imbalance. But instead of feeling closer, he started pulling away. He became distant, cold, sometimes even rude. He started snapping at me for small things, retreating into himself, barely engaging in conversations unless I initiated. Every time I tried to talk to him about it, to check in, to ask what he was feeling, he'd flip it around on me. He'd say I was invalidating his feelings. That he was just as stressed as I was with job hunting, with doing chores, with life. And I wasn't denying that. I wasn't trying to play the who's more stressed game. But I was trying to communicate that I felt like I was drowning. Because I am. I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm keeping us afloat financially. I'm managing all the bills, coordinating vet appointments, doing laundry, dishes, errands, trying to find 45 minutes in the day to walk the dogs or eat something, or even just breathe. I'm carrying the weight of a divorce that keeps dragging on, made even more complicated by the fact that my ex-husband literally fled the country, disappearing, dodging court dates, making everything more expensive and emotionally exhausting than it already is. Fast forward to recently, I went on a work trip. Honestly, I didn't even want to go. I was exhausted before I even packed my bags. But I went anyway because I knew the money would help. I'm constantly thinking about how to keep us afloat, how to save, how to make things more comfortable for both of us. I keep saying us because that's how I think, in terms of we, even when I'm the one doing the heavy lifting. I landed, drained from the long trip, and the first thing I wanted to do was hear his voice. I missed him, even though things had been tense. I thought maybe we'd reconnect after a little time apart. I reached out right away, sent him a message asking if we could talk just to check in, see how things were going back home, maybe share a moment of closeness. But he said he couldn't talk because he had a movie night planned with one of his best friends. I didn't push. I said okay. That was the last time we spoke for 3 days. I tried, I really did, but I was in a place with limited reception and a packed schedule. Early meetings, late nights, back-to-back work obligations. I was so tired that I was falling asleep mid-text. Still, I kept thinking about him, about the dogs, about home. Then yesterday, I got a text from him, not to check in, not to ask how I was doing or how the trip was going, but to tell me the dogs were running out of food. He asked if I could order more and schedule the delivery for 6 p.m. No, hey, hope you're doing okay. Just a task. A request. Of course I did it. I always do. But the vet had recently changed their food, and we were in the middle of transitioning them slowly to the new formula. It's important they don't switch too fast, especially my older dog, who has a sensitive stomach. So I texted him to explain how to do the transition properly, thinking we'd talk it through, and I'd walk him through it gently. But the way he responded, it was like he didn't understand what I was saying, or maybe he just wasn't paying attention. He kept asking questions that didn't make sense, and giving answers that made me worry. So I figured, okay, let me just call. A 5-minute conversation would clear up what could take 20 texts to explain. Plus, I hadn't actually spoken to him in days, and even if it was brief, I was craving that connection. I missed him. I thought maybe a call would help both of us feel a little more grounded. I asked him when he'd be free and at home so we could talk. He told me 8 p.m. I respected his time, planned around it, and called him exactly then. He picked up the phone and said, Hey, what do you want? Not a hi or a hey babe. Just cold. Dismissive. Like I was a problem to be solved. I froze. I was taken aback. We hadn't spoken in days, not even a quick miss you, and I had spent that time stressed, overwhelmed, and trying to take care of things from afar. I said, "Why are you talking to me like that?" And before I could finish my sentence, he snapped. He started yelling, full volume, frustrated and angry, saying he was in the middle of house chores and doing something on the computer and that I was interrupting him. I was stunned.
I didn't yell back.
I just went quiet and hung up. I sat there for a few minutes, my heart racing. I felt small, like I was 10 years old again and being scolded for asking too many questions. I took a deep breath and texted him, trying to defuse the tension. I wrote, "When you're calm and ready to talk with mutual respect, no yelling, please call me. I'm happy to talk about whatever is bothering you." His response? He told me he would only talk to me if I apologized. That was it. No attempt to explain, no interest in having a real conversation. Just a demand, apologize or I won't speak to you. And something about that flipped a switch in me. I've been through emotional manipulation before. I know what it feels like when someone tries to flip the narrative, make you the villain for having feelings, create these one-sided conditions for peace. And in that moment, I saw it for what it was. I called him again, this time not to argue, but to calmly explain that what he was doing, this demand for an apology before we could even have a dialogue, felt manipulative. I told him that setting terms like that wasn't fair, and that it left no room for my feelings or experience. He hung up on me. I called again, hoping maybe he'd had a moment to reflect. This time, he answered, but before I could say anything meaningful, he asked again, "Are you going to apologize?"
I said no.
I said I didn't believe I had anything to apologize for. That I wasn't the one who raised my voice or disrespected the other. That I wasn't going to say sorry just to keep the peace if the peace wasn't built on mutual understanding. And then he said it. Plainly. "Then we're not on good terms, and I won't speak to you until you do." I paused and asked him, "Is that really your decision? Do you understand what that means? To cut off communication unless you get the apology you want, even though you were the one yelling?" And again, calmly and firmly, he said yes. He chose silence. He chose conditions. He chose control. And I sat there with my phone in my hand, feeling that familiar ache in my chest, the one that comes when you realize someone who says they love you would rather manipulate you than meet you halfway. The one that comes when love starts to feel like a test you're always failing, no matter how much you give. After everything that happened during that phone call, the yelling, the emotional ultimatum, the silence he chose instead of resolution, I sat alone in my hotel room and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I felt small again, tired in a way that went beyond the physical. I kept replaying our conversation, trying to find the moment where I could have done something different, said something softer, made myself smaller to avoid his anger. But then I stopped. I've been here before. Not in exact details, but in the pattern, being the one who bends and bends until I barely recognize myself, just to avoid conflict, just to hold on to the idea of peace. And this time, I saw it clearly. I wasn't being loved. I was being managed, controlled. So I made a decision. I emailed property management the next morning. I copied him on it. I wanted it to be professional, not emotional. I informed them that he would be moving out in 15 days, in accordance with the lease agreement. No anger, no drama,
just the facts.
Then I sent him a separate email. I kept it direct and practical. I asked for his moving schedule so we could coordinate logistics. I asked him to let me know when we would be closing our joint bank account. I asked him for clarity on who would care for the dogs during my next work trip. I didn't want to argue. I wanted to create boundaries. Clean ones. Still, because I cared, because I always cared, even when he made me feel like I was a burden just for needing kindness, I tried to explain one more time how I felt. I even tried to explain to him how his behavior was hurting me, how manipulative it felt, and how it was triggering for me because of the abuse I went through with my ex-husband. His reaction didn't change. He didn't walk through it. Now he's accusing me of throwing him out on the streets, with no money or place to go.